just came back from seeing Spider-Man No Way Home. And I will say this movie was the second un-MCU movie so far. I'm going to have to get number one to the Eternals because that movie was MCU, but it wasn't as MCU as the other MCU movies. But this movie here will be number two. It was pretty good. I liked it. I will give it, out of 10, I would probably give it like a 7.5 solid, like a 7.5, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So I would give it like a solid 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. Depends on how you want to look at it. Certain scenes were awesome. Certain scenes were like, okay. Certain scenes were like, I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Marvel. So first we're going to go with the beginning where it all started. In the beginning of the movie, you heard what pretty much happened at the end of the last Spider-Man movie, which was Spider-Man Far From Home, where you heard Mysterio pretty much tell the world who Spider-Man was. Obviously, that's the premise of the movie. Everybody knows what's going on. But a lot of stuff happened because of that, obviously, right? So they showed Peter Parker, running away from paparazzi, running away from like random people, running away from people who were Mysterio supporters, basically. And he was trying to tell them like, no, he was the bad guy, I was a good guy, I'm saving people's lives, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. As he's saving MJ from a crowd of people that's like, not attacking her, but surrounding her, asking, are you Peter Parker's or Spider-Man's girlfriend? And a whole bunch of crazy stuff, right? So he finally get loose, he get away, he gets home, where we see that, I don't know if I didn't know this, but Aunt May and Happy were a thing. Not sure how that became a thing, but it was a thing. A little later, we see Aunt May, Happy, Peter, MJ, and Nick get taken down to the Department of Damage Control, where they got taken from a warrant. And we hear that one of the agents tell Peter that Nick Fury has been off of planet for a while. And last time I checked, he was on planet and Endgame. So, question is, where did he go? Where did he go? After the scene, we get our first cameo of the movie where everyone went crazy when we seen Daredevil from Netflix. Not to mention, we just got the Kingpin in episode 5 of Hawkeye. Again, solidifying that the Netflix series of all the characters from Netflix are canon in the MCU. Which leads me to think that we may be getting a Disney Plus Daredevil and probably of all the other shows as well. And of course it wouldn't be a Marvel movie without some type of DC reference. And we get our reference from none other than Flash Thompson, where he's written a book about being Spider-Man's best friend called Flashpoint, which refers to DC comics of Flash, where he goes back in time and save his mother from dying and cause this whole apocalypse and fight between the Amazons and Atlanteans, and he has to go back and make sure his mother dies to have the normal life, which actually changes into the New 52. But that's a whole other thing. After this epic fight between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, where he leaves Doctor Strange in the Mirrorverse, he takes his sling ring and leaves him in the Mirrorverse. We find out that in some kind of way, Ned may be blessed with the mystic arts in his blood. I wish they would have tapped in that a little bit further, but maybe they were in a future movie. But he was able to open up a portal a whole lot easier than Strange was in his training, and that baffles me. And there was a joke earlier in the movie where he was saying that his fingers were tingling, and he told him to go see a doctor. Little did he know that doctor may be him. Later, Peter takes all of the villains back to his hideout where he's staying at with Aunt May at Happy's place, and he's trying to cure them before he sends them back to their universe so they can possibly not die from accidental death, basically from their own accord. He's trying to save them, And turns out that everyone was kind of for it, but the Green Goblin, who was like the Joker of this movie, basically, he was just maniacal, which I love so much, that he was actually trying to kill Peter Parker. So they had this epic fight between Peter Parker and Green Goblin, where he just throwing him through the building, and Peter Parker was getting his ass whooped. At the end of the scene, Green Goblin sends his glider into the building and hits Aunt May. And she gets up like a champ afterwards. I'm like, oh yeah, she's good, she's fine, yeah, sexy Aunt May still lives. And then she said the famous words, and then that's when I knew, with great power comes great responsibility. And after she said that, I knew what was going to happen. Sexy Aunt May dies. Hashtag sad face. But at the same time, I think I like that because it gave him the Spider-Man mythos in a way. Because the other two lost their Uncle Ben, and Andrew Garfield learns later that his parents died trying to save him. So it's like they didn't really mention the Uncle Ben of this universe, but his Uncle Ben technically was his Aunt May. And now that she died, it hit him to where he literally became, like, that was a moment of switching from a high school student to an adult. And now he's a big boy. And then one of my favorite scenes came after the Spider-Mans met. They had a whole little Spider-Man chat up top of the Empire State Building that was being rebuilt with the Captain America shield. I thought it was pretty cool. And they were just talking about how Tobey Maguire was able to shoot webs out of his actual body, but they couldn't do it. They were talking about how Tom Holland was able to fight an alien in space. And with the stories, it made the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man not feel so, like, awesome. And then Tobey Maguire told him what he had to hear was, "You're amazing," which was a little Easter egg, like, for the Amazing Spider-Man, because that was the name of his movie, The Amazing Spider-Man. And it made him feel so much better because everyone downplayed his movies compared to the MCU Spider-Man and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he proves it by doing the one thing he couldn't do in his own movie, which was save the girl. As MJ was falling, Tom Holland tried to save her, but he couldn't because he had knocked away. And he wouldn't let another love of Peter Parker die. So he went down and saved her. And it was a very emotional moment. And everybody in the theater clapped. And it's the only part of the movie I kind of predicted. Not even predicted. I got the theory made sense from Straw Hat Goofy. So shout out to Straw Hat Goofy. That was smart, bro. And in the last scene, it shows him walk into an apartment that looks very similar to the Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man apartment that he moved into. And he was also sewing together a Spider-Man suit that looked like, in my opinion, it looks like a mixture of Tobey Maguire's and Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's suit put together. It looks more comic book accurate. It's very shiny and the blue spots. It looks so cool. And I'm glad that they did that because I feel like they was paying an homage to the Spider-Man that came before him. And I thought that was pretty cool. So my favorite part of this movie was definitely the interaction between the Spider-Man. I think every scene they had was touching and it was awesome. Of course, one of my favorite scenes is when Spider-Man saved MJ because he couldn't save Gwen Stacy. It was so beautiful. And believe it or not, I also like the scene, and don't hate me for this, that Aunt May was the Ben of this movie. It said that she had to die to be that, but she was his Ben. And I'm glad that they did that to move him into the next phase of his heroicness. Least favorite parts of the movie, the CGI of the lizard.
Was that a dinosaur?
The talking dinosaur, basically, is what they called him. Like, they didn't finish his CGI, and I wish they would have done that. And also Sandman. They didn't show his actual face or show his ability too much, really. Into the end of the movie, most of the movie, he was just doing a cyclone around whatever was there. Or he was drifting off into the wind. He didn't really fight until the end, and they didn't show his actual face until he was cured of whatever disease. And I thought that was so weird. But whatever. I guess they didn't care too much about those two villains. Because they made Electro look pretty cool. And the Green Goblin suit, even though it was like basically just rags, it wasn't the actual suit from the movie, it still looked cool. And it was basic. So they could do the same thing for those two guys. And I like the way they set this movie up for movies going forward, because it gives you the mystery of wondering what's next for Peter Parker, what's next for Spider-Man, who are like, how is he going to get his identity to the superheroes that's still in the universe? How is Ned and MJ going to get their memory back? It's so many questions up in the air now, and it makes you wonder and wait for the next Spider-Man movie to come out. Is they going to bring that into now the MCU or the Spider-Verse? Is Spider-Man no longer going to be doing any MCU movies, and it's going to be just Spider-Verse movies? So let me know down in the doobly-doos, what do you think is going to happen in the next Spider-Man movie? Let me know where you think Nick Fury's been. Let me know, how do you think MJ and Ned will get their memories back, or if they ever get their memories back. It's your boy PokeGainz. I'm out.